Happy last day of the trimester, everybody! Today we are going to be finishing up our review. This review may not be as long, as we just finished the Incarnation chapter, so that review will be rather short. But let's start with the introduction to the Gospels. We have finally made it to the New Testament. The New Testament has 27 books in it. We all think that it is only made up of the Gospels. But that is not true at all. There are actually 4 types of books within the New Testament. They are just like the 4 main types of books in the Old Testament. They are the Law, which contain the 4 Gospels, the Historical, which contain the Acts of the Apostles, the Wisdom, which contain the letters or epistles, and the Prophecy, which contains the book of Revelation. When we are reading the New Testament, it is super important to understand who all the people are. Remember, we are talking about the religion of Judaism. This referred to a people and a religion. They believed in monotheism, the 10 Commandments, circumcision, the Sabbath, and had an expectation of an afterlife. With regards to their rule, Israel was a theocracy, a government of political and religious rule combined. The high priest was the highest power in Judaism after Rome, and the Sanhedrin was under them, as the supreme authority. Now let's talk about the different sects of Judaism. We have the Sadducees, who were the upper class. They took Judaism to the next level by not believing in many things, like an afterlife, and only accepted the Pentateuch. The Pharisees were your normal average everyday Jews. They were too legalistic though. Scribes were a subsect of the Pharisees, who were the doctors of the law. Zealots were a very militaristic group who opposed Jesus' teaching. Essenes were a monastic type of community who sought to remain pure, so they lived in communities away from society. With regards to Roman rule, Caesar Octavius Augustus was the emperor of Rome, with Herod the Great ruling. He then divided his land into 4 parts, with a tetrarch ruling over those areas. Pontius Pilate was one. How do we know when Jesus was born? That's an excellent question. Time was based on the founding of the city of Rome. Dionysius, a young monk, had calculated time working off the birth of Jesus in relation to the foundation of the city of Rome. His calculations are off by about 7 years, but hey, that's really not that bad considering how long ago he did this and the lack of science like we have today. Way to go, Dionysius. Now, some things to know. So Jesus was probably born around 7 BC, maybe even around 2 to 3 BC. Jesus began his ministry in 28 AD and only ministered for about 2 to 3 years. He dies in 30 AD. Such a short period of time for such an absolutely incredible man. It is important to know the area that we are talking about during Jesus' life. There are 3 provinces. They are Galilee in the north, Samaria in the middle, and Judea in the south. A good way to remember this is go south Jesus. When we talk about the city of Jerusalem, it is a mountainous city. That's why you will hear people say they went up to Jerusalem. How interesting! Let's now discuss the 4 Gospel writers. There really is one Gospel, with court accountings of it. Gospel means good news. Each Gospel is the author's way of how he saw the stories of Jesus. This is the chart that we spoke about in class. It is super duper important to know this material. I won't be going over here every single detail as we already did that in class. Some important things to know is all the qualifications as a writer, especially that both Matthew and John were apostles. Also, make sure to know which Gospels contain the infancy narratives, which is Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It is also very important to know who each writer is writing to. Once you know that, you can realize what images of Christ they use as well as their theological themes. Study this. Study this. Now we will move on to the Incarnation. The Incarnation is the central event in history. It is when God becomes man. Remember we spoke about the fact that Jesus is fully human? There are only 2 Gospels that contain the infancy narratives. They are Luke and Matthew. The Gospel of John begins by showing us that the Word is made flesh. The Word is Logos. Let's now discuss the differences between the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. Like I said before, we will not be spending much time on this as we just finished this material in class. I also am only allowed to speak for about 90 seconds, so I am quite limited. Wow, thanks Telegami writer. Oh well. I can get my point across to you. I'm smart like that. So let's look at this chart that I have created for you. Make sure to be able to know the differences between the Gospels of Luke and Matthew. You also should be able to explain each of these stories. You know this. It's Christmas! Okay, so now we have completed our review of the second trimester. Good luck on your exams. You'll do great. Happy Easter. Bye!